TFA fam, what is going on? Thank you for joining us for the Week 14 running back rankings and must start show. It is crazy. We have the playoffs are already here. They're next week, so you got to lock in. We got to make sure we get those. Got to make sure we get those lineups right so we can get you in the playoffs and win those ships. As always, we're going to go through our top 24 consensus running back rankings for Week 14. Then we're going to talk about some must-start options that you might be wavering on a little bit deeper down the list. Here are our top 12 running backs for Week 14. Kicking things off, like I said, with Austin Ekeler, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Najee Harris, Alexander Mattison, Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, James Conner, DeAndre Swift, and then Elijah Mitchell at 12. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to be able to play yet. He's in the concussion protocol. We're going to be talking about one of the other running backs in that backfield a little bit later on. But moving on to our running back twos for Week 14, Cordarrelle Patterson still hanging out there, followed by David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ezekiel Elliott, James Robinson, Devonta Freeman, Javonte Williams, who, if you saw last week, if you had him, what a great day to be alive. And then Chuba Hubbard and Jamal Williams at RB 24. Kev, floor is yours. Talk to the folks about some running backs that you think are must-start options. Like I said, a little further on down the list for Week 14.
Yeah, I do want to start off just by also saying that Alexander Mattison would be intertwined with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook got in a limited practice today, but they wasn't a real practice. But we'll see if he's able to come back and play. You would just swap out Dalvin Cook with Alexander Mattison. There's how that would work, and then Alexander Mattison will drop out. But I did just want to mention that really quickly because that we don't have that news quite yet.
And DeAndre Swift as well.
Yeah, same. Yeah, well, I wouldn't have Jamal Williams at 10, but yeah, same. So, anyways, I'm going to start off and I'm going to talk about Josh Jacobs. He has quietly probably been one of the more undervalued running backs this year, and just a lot of people just don't talk about him just because he's not really sexy. He doesn't put up like huge performances, but he's just been really steady this year. He has a 61% snap share, a 64% opportunity share, which is almost top 12 among all running backs. He's averaging about 12 and a half carries, 4.5 targets per game, a 13% target share, which is probably the biggest news of all of this, because last year in years past he's never been involved in the passing game, even though you'd have John Gruden and Mike Mayock come out every year, give you the lip service about how we're going to get him more involved in the passing game, and it just never came to fruition. Well, this year it really has. He already has more targets now than he did all of last year. And so he is seeing a lot of targets. Last game, he saw 9 targets. He had, like I said, 13% target share. He has 27 red zone touches and 5 goal line carries. He does have 7 touchdowns on the year as well. He's been somewhat efficient as a runner, 22nd in evaded tackles, 28th in yards created per touch with a 1.41 yards per route run and 18th in routes run. Other positive news, which, you hate to see it, but Kenyon Drake is out for the year with I believe it was a broken ankle. And so Kenyon Drake is now gone from that backfield as well. So really it's just him, Peyton fucking Barber, and maybe Jalen Richard, right? And so that's all there is in this backfield. If he's going to continue to see this kind of passing work, he is going to be a borderline RB1 every single week. And this week against Kansas City has gotten a lot better against the run, but they still rank 14th in fantasy points to running backs, 26th in rush DVOA, 28th in adjusted line yards, 31st in power rank. So Josh Jacobs is a pretty strong start this week against Kansas City. Next up, Saquon Barkley. This one is tough because it's Saquon Barkley, and it's not even his fault. I've seen people say that he's washed, all this other ridiculousness. It's just not accurate whatsoever. He has a 67% snap share, a 68% opportunity share, and some of that is baked in with the early season whenever they were ramping him up, and then once he came back from this last injury, same thing. Because when he's healthy, he's getting about 85% of the touches out of this backfield. He's averaging about 11 carries per game, 5 targets per game, a 14.3% target share, but he only has 11 red zone touches and 2 goal line carries on the year, and that is more to have to do with not Saquon Barkley, but just how bad the fucking Giants have been this year. They have been one of the worst offenses in the league. I think they only have like 18 offensive touchdowns all year, which is embarrassing. But Saquon Barkley is still 11th in yards created per touch and 35th in evaded tackles. And considering he's missed so much time, that's impressive. So he's still been really efficient. It's just the fact that he just can't get anything going. The offensive line is not very good, but the offense is terrible. And now we have Jake Fromm starting at quarterback this week from the University of Georgia because Daniel Jones is likely out and Mike Glennon's in concussion protocol. But they do get a great matchup this week. The LA Chargers rank 5th in fantasy points to running backs, 32nd in rush DVOA, 31st in adjusted line yards, 28th in power, 27th in open field, and 20th in second level. This is a defense that you could definitely run the football against. And so this is a great matchup for Saquon Barkley to kind of get it back on track. He wasn't terrible last week. I think he was like 13.2 PPR points, but it's still not what you're looking for from Saquon Barkley. That's why we have him down where we do. He is much more of in the RB2 conversation now. He is not no more, at least as of now, in that RB1 discussion. But I still think Saquon Barkley is a very viable option. I think you're going to see a lot from Jake Fromm, a lot of that check down. There's going to be checking it down to Saquon a whole hell of a lot. So he's probably going to see a bunch of targets. Kenny Golladay is out in that game as well. So that is also something to mention with him being out. Kenny Golladay has been an absolute bust this year for this team. He just cannot stay healthy. Surprise, surprise. It does sound like they should get Sterling Shepard back and possibly Kadarius Toney, so that should help a little bit. But regardless, we're going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley in this game against the Chargers, and he's going to see a lot of pass-catching work as well. So I do think you can play Saquon Barkley. I'm just not as confident in him as I once was. Javonte Williams, you just talked about him. I'm going to talk about him again. They get an absolute dream of a matchup against Detroit this week. 49% snap share, 51% opportunity share for Javonte. He is averaging 11 attempts per game, 3.5 targets per game, an 11% target share, 26 red zone touches. He has 670 rushing yards, 269 receiving yards. He almost has 1,000 total yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. And the dude has just been a monster with a 3.86 yards created per touch, with his 5th among all running backs, 8th in evaded tackles, and 17th in yards per route run. The dude is a monster. We just saw him on against the Chiefs, and he was that offense, the entire offense. He was the entirety of that offense. And now this week, they get a great matchup against Detroit, who is 3rd in fantasy points to running backs, 23rd in rush DVOA, 26th in adjusted line yards, 21st in open field, and 30th in second level rank. So Javonte Williams, regardless if Melvin Gordon comes back this week, he is still a very strong option at running back, and he is a low-end RB2 for me in this matchup just because I think Melvin Gordon is going to return and Melvin Gordon is going to get opportunities. But this will be very interesting to see. Do they go back to that 50-50 touch share, or do we see something a little bit more, maybe like a 60-40 split for Javonte? Because I just don't know what else you could do. I mean, Javonte, I don't know what else the man could do to not get more touches because of how well he played and how well he played last week.
I'm afraid, Kev, your heart is going to be broken because leave it to dusty ass, crusty ass, dinosaur ass Vic Fangio to go ahead and go right back to that 50-50 split. But we're going to get back on track with some positive talk. 2 guys that I like in this RB2 range for you all this week that I think you feel comfortable plugging into your lineups. One, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously for the brand, but he did see 68% of the RB opportunities last week, getting 17 carries and targets to Darrell Williams, 8. Now he gets a matchup against the Raiders where the Chiefs are 9-point home favorites, and the Raiders are giving up the 6th most half PPR points per game to running backs. They rank 17th in adjusted line yards, 21st in second level yards, and the Chiefs are 8th in offensive adjusted line yards. So with Clyde Edwards-Helaire back to his pre-injury role and the juicy matchup, I really like Clyde in this spot to give us some solid high-end RB2 production. And the last guy I want to touch on is Chuba Hubbard. Now, he's not a sexy option, and we do like Amir Abdullah better in PPR formats going forward. But I think for this game against the Falcons, I'm not sure how much the Panthers are going to be playing from behind. So I think it's going to limit the usage for Abdullah in this one. And I think Chuba is still going to be the main, grinder, if you will, first and second down, short yardage kind of situation. So the Falcons are actually right behind the Raiders. They give up the 7th most half PPR points per game to running backs. And part of the reason why that we tell people to stay away from handcuffing their running backs, particularly early in the year, particularly whenever you're drafting, is because there are very few running backs that you're just going to plug in if the starter goes down and you're going to get, 80% of that production. And that's exactly what we saw with Chuba. He only had 2 RB2 weeks, or 3 RB2 weeks, excuse me, while CMC was out the first time. But one of those was to Atlanta back in week 8, where he had 90 total yards and a score. So if you held on to Chuba, or if you snagged him off of waivers last week or 2 weeks ago with the CMC news, you can plug him in as a back end RB2 going up against Atlanta in this matchup. So that is going to wrap it up. Please be sure to hit us with a sub and a like. It is Christmas. It is the giving season. We're giving you content. Give us a sub. Give us a like. If you're on the podcast side of things, please hit us with a rate and review over there. Any questions you have, drop them in the YouTube comments or join our free Discord fantasy football community where you can always chop it up with us over there. Good luck in week 14. Let's lock it in, get to the playoffs next week, and bring home those chips.